We all know in principle what the first commandment says, that there is only one God, and that all our praise and worship and adoration should belong only to this God and no other. I am the Lord your God, you shall have no strange gods before me. First commandment. And yet, let us admit it, there are people we honor, venerate, or even put on pedestals for one reason or another. Just look around you, such as our saints and martyrs, our heroes and role models, and the people we have so much respect for and love for, such as our mothers. There are people we idolize, even if we use the term in a metaphorical way. And take note of the words that people sometimes use to express love. You know, like the French people who love to exaggerate their emotions. And they have expressions like, je t'adore, meaning, I adore you. The last time that I opened a Jubilee door at San Jose de Nabotas and found myself kneeling before an image of Saint Joseph, I thought to myself how some of my friends from the evangelical churches, yung tinatawag nating born again, would react. Are we really, by nature, incurably idolatrous? Kasi yun ang madalas na batiko sa atin. Sumasamba sa mga idolo. Is it really next to impossible to ask human beings to worship only God and no other? Sa ating first reading ngayon, Cornelius drops on his knees. He kneels before Paul. And Saint Paul says to him, ay, tumayo ka. I am also a human being. The same thing happened during their missionary journey in the city of Lystra. Also in the Acts of the Apostles. After they healed a crippled man, manghang-mangha yung mga tao, they declared them to be gods that came down from heaven. Tinawag si Paul na Zeus at si Barnabas na Hermes, mga gods nila. And they even started offering them sacrifices. And Paul reacted the same way. Let me read it. Acts chapter 14, verse 15. Sabi ni St. Paul, bakit nyo ginagawa ito? Why are you doing this? We are of the same nature as you. We are human beings. I imagine what it must have been like when the early Christians started worshiping Jesus of Nazareth as God. Ang swerte natin, 2,000 years later na, and we take it all for granted. But can you imagine what it was like? In the first century, everything about it was blasphemous for the Jewish faith. Kalapastanganan para sa mga Hudyo. It offended their religious sensibilities. How dare you? How dare you worship God in a mere human being? They probably said with indignation, If he is human, he cannot be God. Kasi we now profess faith in Jesus as true God and true man. Hindi nila matanggap yon. If he is human, he cannot be God. You remember the song of Mary Magdalene? Doon sa Jesus Christ Superstar. Ang sabi nung kanta, I don't know how to love him, what to do, how to move him. He's a man. He's just a man. Tao siya. Tao lang siya. You know, the song is verbalizing the dilemma in the worshiper about seeing God in a human being. And she draws back, as it were, and says, Teka, why am I doing this? He is only a human being like me. Katulad ko lang siyang tao. Where is this sense of duality coming from? How come we are so naturally drawn to put our fellow human beings on a pedestal when they do great things, but at the same time doubt the correctness of it all? Where is this inner conflictedness coming from? Ako sa tingin ko, it is coming from a collective low self-esteem about our humanity. Kasi we tend to associate our humanity with pagiging makasalanan, mahina, marupok, with weakness, being flawed, being fallen. And it is true. Totoo naman. Every now and then, when some of the people we adore, when some of the people we idolize, make mistakes and cause public scandals and fall from grace, our faith in humanity is crushed. We tend to feel so disappointed. We are tempted to swing to the opposite extreme of behaving like so-called iconoclasts. Ibig sabihin, idol bashers. We go to the opposite extreme. We go berserk and almost make it our mission to topple down every human image, every icon that is being put on a pedestal. You want to crush them. You want to denounce every act of goodness as nothing but hypocrisy. Hipokrito, kunyari, mabait. The feeling of betrayal can be so traumatic in some people. It can lead to depression. It can cause a loss of faith. It can color your perceptions about human goodness. Parang ayaw mo nang maniwala na mayroong likas na kabutihan yung tao. Lagi kang magsususpetsa, ay naku, kunyari lang yan. That human goodness, cover up lang yan. It is just a camouflage for predatory activities, for wickedness. At some point, you don't realize, hindi ka mulat, nag-flip out ka na pala. And you end up making it your career, kinakareer na, the objective of demystifying any form of sanctity, goodness, or heroism, to call every person who is being admired or being extolled as a fraud, as fake, as plastic, as hypocrite. Does it sound familiar? You want to topple them all down. You want to prove that these idols have feet made of clay. Putik lang. But today we celebrate Mother's Day. And if there are people whom we tend to idolize and put on pedestals, especially after they have passed on, it is our mothers. We treasure our memories of these women who nurtured us, who raised us into the human beings, the persons that we are now, the women who have given it all, lahat binigay, who found it their joy to give joy to the people they love and waited for no return, who lived in total self-forgetfulness. Who doesn't adore a mother? But they have feet made of clay also, don't they? Surely, we've never doubted that our mothers are as human as any one of us, di ba? Makulit din sila minsan. Nakakainis din sila minsan. Some of them are failures also. Some of them have fallen. Some of them have abandoned their children. Some of them have not lived up to the roles expected of them. And yet, none of these flaws can keep us from extolling them, from adoring them, from lighting a candle or offering flowers at their graves like we do for our idols. I have good news for you. It was Jesus who restored our faith in humanity. Kaya ang title ng homiling ito, Faith in Humanity. Kasi madalas ang alam nating faith, faith in divinity, faith in God. We forget that God has faith in humanity also. Kung walang tiwala ang Diyos sa ating pagkatao, hindi na sana siya nagkatawang tao. Madalas nating makalimutan yon. We have tended to treat with contempt our humanity. We have tended to equate humanity with sinfulness, with the fall of Adam and Eve. But before Jesus, we had already tended to wallow in a collective low self-esteem, mababang pagtingin sa ating sarili, sa ating pagkatao. Kaya nga siguro, may mga kasabihang katulad ng, sapagkat kami mga tao lamang. We are just human. As if it were so bad to be human. Tao lang po. Para bang napakasamang maging tao? Hindi ba merong kasabihan sa English, to err is human, ano kasunod? To forgive is divine. Ang magkasala ay tao, maging tao. Ang magpatawad daw ay maging makadiyos. Parang there is something inside me that is reacting to that. And so when Jesus went around forgiving sins, and He taught His disciples to forgive, people took offense at Him. Anong sabi nila? They said, only God can forgive sins. Sino ka para magpatawad ng kasalanan? Diyos lang daw ang nagpapatawad ng kasalanan. My dear brothers and sisters, here lies the radicality of the Christian message. Ito ang pinakaradikal sa mensahe ng ating pananampalatayang Kristiyano. Jesus not only took very seriously our being created in the image and likeness of God, He proclaimed that our vocation is to be sons and daughters of God. My God! Higit pa yon doon sa larawan ng Diyos. Hindi ka lang larawan ng Diyos. Tinawag ka upang maging kaanak ng Diyos. Wow! Kung anak ka ng Diyos, edi Diyos ka rin. You really believe that? We're supposed to believe that. That is the Christian faith. For Jesus, therefore, it is not true that only God can forgive. In fact, he believes that we're not godly enough if we cannot forgive. He dares to insist that we are created in the likeness of a forgiving God, our God who loves unconditionally. And people who strive to love unconditionally learn to forgive. Yes, to err is human. Ang magkamali ay bahagi ng pagiging tao. But in Jesus, we can now proudly say, to forgive is also human. Ang magpatawad ay bahagi din ng pagiging tao. We are most human, not when we do stupid things. Kahit alam nating bahagi ng ating pagkatao, ng ating katangahan, we are most human when we truly learn to love. When we discover that we too are capable of that greater love that Jesus is talking about in the gospel today. The readiness to lay down one's life for one's friend, for one's beloved. For Jesus, it is then that we fulfill our true humanity. It is then that we are able to express the nobility of our humanity. Only people who have been loved, only people who have learned to love can grow into proper human beings. Sometimes we condemn criminals and do not realize what kind of life they have been through. Kasi, pag lumaki kang may pamilya ka, may nagmahal sa'yo, may nag-aruga sa'yo, you tend to think that everybody else experienced that. Hindi po totoo. May mga batang-bata pa sila, nasa kalsada na sila. May mga batang lumaki na ang magulang hindi sila minamahal. Minumura sila. And you expect those people to grow into proper human beings? Mahirap maging tao ang taong hindi minahal. When in the midst of cruelty, of selfishness and arrogance, we choose to be kind, to be generous, to be caring, to be compassionate, it is then that we reflect what is most godly, what is most holy, what is most noble, what is most true, good, and beautiful about our humanity. Brothers and sisters, that is the good news of Christianity. Let us not lose faith in our humanity. It is beautiful to be human. And so you see, through Jesus, we can now start to heal our collective low self-esteem as human beings. In Jesus, we can say, it is not bad to be human after all, if God embraced our humanity. The man on the cross, he has become our new prototype, our new model of genuine humanity. The man we confess as the Christ, the Son of God. Sa araw ng mga ina, Mother's Day, Let us consciously commit the positive form of idolatry. Let us express our worship and praise and adoration on what our mothers represent. Love, self-forgetting love, unconditional love. And isn't that what God is all about? We can be the human face of the God we worship.